If you will train yourself to not answer their question, but rather direct them to the procedural manual, you'll find that you get less and less of those questions.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
I'm in my office today, but I am not working on appraisals. I'm working on my business. I'm working on improving the systems and, yes, the procedures that we use in our office to create efficiency and effectiveness and high quality. One of the things I'm working on today is updating our procedural manual. I want to talk about procedural manuals today. Do you have one? Why should you have one? What are they? How do you set them up? We're going to talk about that and more today. I want to pause here and remind you that we're sponsored by Anow Software. Speaking of things that we use to improve the efficiency and the quality of our office, Anow Software is how we manage everything. ANOW.com, Anow.com. All right, folks, I want to talk today about procedural manuals. And first of all, let's establish a foundation. Why should you have a procedural manual? Maybe we should start even further back than that. What is a procedural manual? Folks, a procedural manual is no more or less than a manual, a way to access information about how your office is run. How do you do this task? How do you do that task? Back in the day, procedural manuals were manuals. I mean, they were physical books, if you will, in binders that told you how to do things that you would look up. I remember when I started my first job as a hamburger flipper when I was 14 years of age in Blackfoot, Idaho, at the McDonald's. And back on the shelf, right by the break room, there were about 6 binders. One for grill, one for cashier, one for lobby, one for drive-through, one for managers. And if you wanted to know something about the procedures, you would reach up and you would grab one of those binders and you would look through it and you would figure out what the procedure was for that particular thing. That was a procedural manual. Well, first of all, I don't recommend that you have physical binders anymore. I don't suggest that you have physical books. I think it's much, much better that you have an online system that you can share with your entire office. That's what we do. But a procedural manual is simply, how do you do things? How do you complete this task, that task? The question that I find often from my clients is, well, Dustin, I'm only a single person entity. It's just me. It's me and maybe a part-time assistant. Why would I need a procedural manual? Let's talk about that, shall we? Procedural manuals, folks, will streamline the process for you. They will allow you and help you to be able to do things more efficiently. There's really 2 reasons in my mind, 2 main reasons, and there's multiple reasons, I guess, under these 2 umbrellas, but 2 main reasons why you would want to have a procedural manual and have it up to date. Number 1, training. Now, for those of you who say, you know what, I'm just a single person entity, I don't ever consider myself being a big office, I can't ever see growing into that, I'm very happy working in my little space, going out, doing my inspections in the morning and doing my write-ups in the afternoon. Folks, nothing wrong with that, right? But remember that we are running a business, and even if you are a single person entity, there is a process that you go through. To document that process can be a very enlightening and eye-opening experience. First of all, you may just notice some inefficiencies as you go through that process. As you document what you do, you might ask yourself, why do I do it that way? Wait a second, is there a better way to do that particular thing? And my guess is that you'll find multiple ways to improve. So just through the process of documenting what you do, you'll find opportunities to improve and to better yourselves and to better your lives. The other thing to think about is to never say never. I've heard multiple appraisers many, many times, and by the way, I used to be in this camp as well. If you were to ask me in, say, 2002, if I were ever going to hire somebody in my office, I would have laughed at you. Of course not. One of the reasons I'm an appraiser is because I want to be my own man. I want to be my own business. I want to do my own thing. I don't want to have to answer to someone else. I don't want to have to direct and train and hire and manage and fire possibly someone else. I don't want to deal with that. I just want to deal with myself. Well, folks, I found a better way of doing things, and there's a chance that you might find a better way of doing things down the road as well. Creating a procedural manual helps you to document so that you can have that opportunity. I'm not saying you should, but you can't really hire someone until you have documented what you do. Unless you want to orally show them, but trust me, folks, that is a long, drawn-out process. Speaking of a long, drawn-out process, are you still managing all of your appraisal office in your head? How about on a spreadsheet? Folks, if you have not looked recently at Anow Software and what it has to offer appraisers, you are missing out, trust me. Now, it took me a long time. It took me several months of arm twisting to get on board with Anow years ago. To me, it looked like anything else, right? It's just a new thing to learn, new process. Spreadsheets work just fine for me. Folks, I cannot tell you how grateful I was a couple of months after I signed up for ANOW when I finally cut the apron strings from my stupid spreadsheet and allowed ANOW to work the way that ANOW should. It is an absolutely amazing program. You can find out more at anow.com. And if you want 30% off your first 3 months, please, when you check out, use the coupon code podcast30. That's PODCAST 30. All right, welcome back to the program. Dustin Harris hanging out with you. Once again in the podcast chair, we're talking today about procedural manuals. And again, to lay the foundation, folks, procedural manuals allow you to be able to put on paper, if you will, and I use quotation marks on that because I'm not using physical paper, but put down, if you will, your procedures to dictate to a computer, if you will, what you do and how you do it. And I'm telling you, the bare process of doing that will improve what you do. Because what happens is you start to articulate what you do, you will start to question why you do it the way that you do it. And as you question why you do what you do, you will find ways to improve the system, to change a little bit here, to change a little bit there, and all of a sudden you have a much easier process and a much better flow through when it comes to accomplishing things. Okay. Now, let me back up for just a second and lay a little bit of a foundation. When I talk about procedures, folks, I'm talking about breaking down what you do in your office into little bitty parts, right? When I worked at McDonald's, there was a procedure on how to cook a hamburger. How to take it out of the package, how to put it on the grill, how many minutes before you, what they call sear it, when you push down on the top of the meat, when you flip it, when you take it off, what you do with the grease that's left. I mean, literally, they dictate everything. Why? Because McDonald's runs on a system. By the way, if you want more information about how to run an effective office, and I'm talking appraisal office here, you need to pick up the book, E-Myth Revisited, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. It is an absolute must-read for every appraiser out there. But the whole process of a procedural manual will allow you to be able to streamline things. It will allow you to be able to push through this process and make sure that you have quantified, if you will, everything that you do on paper. It will also allow you the opportunity to grow. Now, we use a system called Google Sites. It's SITES. I think it's sites.google.com. It's free if you have a Gmail address, which again is free. And I highly recommend that you take a look at it because it allows you to be able to create a procedural manual without the cost. There's a lot of paid services out there. And frankly, folks, and I looked at them last week, I thought, maybe there's a better way to do things. And so I started looking at hosts, if you will, for procedural manuals online. And there's a lot of great ones out there. But really, they didn't do much more than what Google Sites does for free. So I'm going to stick with that. Thank you very much. But Sites is just a website, if you will. It's just a way to create a web page. And I have a web page for each and every procedure that I have in my office. And they're all couched in different sections. For example, I've got a customer service section. I've got a data entry section. I've got a research section. I've got an office management section. And within each of those is the procedures that an individual would have if that is their job title. If their job title is customer service representative, they would simply need to go to that particular section to be trained. That's number one. The great thing about a procedural manual is when someone starts in our office, the first 2 days, they don't even really talk to a human being much. I mean, they come on Monday at 9 o'clock and we say, okay, here's the procedure manual. Here's the section. Go to town. For the next 2 days, I want you to study each and every process. Here's access to a server. Here's total. You can get access to that. You can play around with a sample report or, whatever you need to do. And here's your process. For 2 days, they train themselves. And then they come to us with a trainer and say, okay, I learned all of that. I have a few questions and let's dive into this. And all of a sudden we gain a head start. Number two, and this is super important, is people have a place of reference. So the boss doesn't get bothered all the time. This is such an important aspect. Folks, I don't think we even realize how much of a time suck it is when someone says, hey, Dustin, do you have a second? Yeah, of course. For you, I have all kinds of seconds, right? But inside, you're thinking of all the things that you need to do. And sometimes it takes some training when it comes to your office staff, but you can train them very quickly on what it is that they need to be looking for. In other words, they might come to you and say, hey, Dustin, how do you do such and such? If you will train yourself to not answer their question, but rather direct them to the procedural manual, you'll find that you get less and less of those questions. Hey, Dustin, how do you do such and such? Great question. Have you looked at the procedural manual? Oh, yeah, sorry. And all of a sudden, you'll find that they'll look there first. And then when they come to you with questions, it's really something that they couldn't find in the procedural manual. Folks, if you want more information about how to create a procedural manual, I've got a whole webinar on it on my website, theappraisercoach.com/products. Again, that's theappraisercoach.com/products.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.